All right, welcome in. It's over in Indy. All over for Michigan as they get bounced out of the Mid-Ten tournament today by a final of 74-69. Jim Scarcelli, Dennis Fithian. We're ready to talk about this one with you. Jim, this one was looking really good for Michigan in the first half and even with 13 minutes to go in the second half. But then a drought and Michigan folds up and the Hoosiers grab the momentum and they run away with it with a 5-point win. How do you explain this one?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, Indiana, we played them last time. They couldn't make a shot. We played them for the first 20, the first 20 minutes. They were struggling to score points. Second half, though, because I've seen them play this year. They're not always a bad shooting team. They got it together. I thought when they really got that run in the second half, we were trying to force it too much down into Hunter. They were really doing everything to take him away on the low block, but we did so many good things. Then just a couple bad passes, couple bad possessions. It could have gone our way if we would have, Diabate at the end, Brooks at the end made some mistakes. We got picked, had some turnovers. There's plenty of blame. A lot of guys did some good things, but there's plenty of blame to deal with this loss.
Yeah, if you're a good team, Indiana's going to make a run on you, and you know that they're going to try to do everything they can, scramble around. They're a pretty good defensive team, and, they started running around and, started to cut it, and got it down to 10 with 10 after it was a 17-point lead with 13 to go. You knew they were going to make some plays. I mean, they had to win this game. They were desperate. They're not going to play anymore. Their season was over if they don't win this. They're going to the NIT. But Michigan, you got to, you're talking about, sure, they take things away from you, but just forced turnover after forced turnover. And everybody, coming out of the timeout, you get, the guys that you trust the most. Hey, get Eli Brooks, get the angle, throw it down to Hunter Dickinson. They don't find a real good angle, and they just throw it out of bounds. Devante Jones turn the corner, the ball just falls out of bounds. It's they got frazzled, and they just fell apart. And, you look to your seniors, you look to your ball handlers, and, Jones finally did make one play. Then he came back and got a steal. And then, he kind of forced the three there. But too little, too late, for this team. You're right. That last they played some defense, got it down to a one-possession game, and then threw it away again. I don't know. It's I think that when you collapse like this, I mean, there's losing ball games, but when you collapse like this and in a tournament like the manner that they did today, now, this isn't a regular season game. This one leaves a mark.
Yeah, they're going to have to live with it, man. And who knows what's going to happen, Sunday night with the tournament. Are we in? I don't know. We'll see what kind of impact this has, but it's definitely a tough thing for, guys like Brooks and Jones and Johns, the guys that are all done to end like that. They got to live with it. I'm going to get into some of the things I just thought we did good. I thought our offense, I don't know if it was the Ohio thing. I thought we spread it out a little more. There was a lot more of Hunter bringing him away, and we did some good things early with that. I thought defensively we did some good things against Jackson Davis. I think he's one of the top 7 or 8 players in the league. He's a good player. I thought the first half we did a real good job defending him. I thought Sadi had a good scheme. And they just, IU just struggled to make shots. But I thought we did some good things with the zone. We went zone. We went man. We had the full court press. We didn't get any turnovers off our full court press, but I thought it got them out of a rhythm. But, them speeding us up, and that's what you do when you're down 10-12, like they were 15. And that was the game plan for the Indiana coaches. They said, we're going to speed you up. And Michigan just couldn't capitalize. They were doubling everything. They were rushing the game for Michigan offensively, and we couldn't make them pay.
Yeah, I hear you. I would give them an A up to the 13-minute mark left in the game. Then I'd give them an F. I don't know how else to put it here. This team, everything was going fine. Then the wheels fell off, and then they went into a ditch, and then they stayed there. They couldn't get out. Like they fell down. The other team scrambled. The other team was desperate. They couldn't match any of the intensity, and they went into a free fall. And when that happens, you know, you look to the guards, you look to the experienced player, then you look over there on the bench, and you look to the coaches. Michigan had nothing. They called their timeouts, and when they came out, the players couldn't execute it. It's on the coaches. It's on the players. I mean, nobody was able to do anything in the final 13 minutes, and that's on every single player that had a Michigan uniform on. And you get bounced like this out of the tournament, and you know what? Everybody was feeling really good, and they should have after what happened on Sunday. But to lay an egg like they did and choke in the final 13 minutes of the game, the only way you're able to get this one and be able to do anything is you got to go out now in the NCAA tournament if you get in and win some ball games. Because if you go over there and you're one and done, you know, the floor for this program should be, you know, getting into the NCAA tournament. That was good to be able to do that, but you go out and get a no-show in the first round. It's not going to be a very fun offseason, and you know, it shouldn't be for anybody, for the Michigan basketball program if they don't show up next week.
Yeah. You know, I thought Brooks had one of his worst games, you know, just turning the ball over, trying to force it into Hunter. We get a fast break opportunity. He sees nothing there. He lets a guy pick it from behind. Yeah, Brooks was very much below average.
Nobody played well in the final 10 minutes. Nobody, no coach, nobody did anything in. Nobody did anything right. They fell apart. And you know, you don't like to use that choke word, but when you have 10, 11, 12, 13 minutes straight where you can't buy a basket and you can't do anything right, and you're throwing the ball away, you're throwing it off your leg, you can't rebound, you can't defend. They didn't do anything right in the final 13 minutes. So, you know, what else can you say?
Yeah, you know, Danny, you wonder, you know, you wonder. I wasn't there, and it sounded like it was pretty loud in favor of the Hoosiers. You know.
Well, here's what happens. Here's what happens, Scott. I mean, we know it's in Indy, so that's in their backyard. But if you were there for the beginning of the game, the crowd was booing Juwan Howard, of course, coming off the suspension. And what happens is you get pockets of all the different, you know, other 12 teams that are there. It's probably, you know, only like a half dozen to 8, because not everybody, you know, from Northwestern to Minnesota is going to be there. But you got a real mixed crowd. But what happens is they all pull for one team, and it ends up happening where there really is a home court advantage. And Michigan was the villain from the start because of Juwan Howard. Now, that shouldn't have factored in because the way the Wolverines were playing. But then it became one of these things like, are we even going to get a game? Wow, let's really pull for the underdog here because it looked like it was over. And once it started snowballing, you know, obviously we know that Michigan had no answers for anything. And some of this you could say, you know, we've seen it from game to game this year over the last month or so as this team has been, you know, failed to find any consistency from game to game. They'll win one, lose one, win one, lose one. That's been their pattern for over a month now. But in this game, to have everything going so well and then completely fall apart, it's you know, it's got to be maddening for everybody involved, and I know it's maddening for any Michigan fan that watched it.
Yeah, you know, yeah, because I just wonder what you know, what a factor, because we've done a good job. We've played on the road. You know, our kids should be mentally tough to deal with that kind of crowd and deal with it mentally. And it was frustrating to have that happen. It was very frustrating, the technical foul on Hunter. You know, how many times is that going to have to happen to him? Okay. Now, I talked about it a couple weeks ago, but, you know, what do I know? I'm just an old school guy that doesn't believe in pointing at the other team's bench. And I talked about it a couple weeks ago, and, well, that's Hunter. Well, that's Hunter. BS. That's not a good look. That's not good. You point to your teammate. You point to your fans. You don't point at anybody else. I don't think we're going to see it anymore. You know, I read Dean Smith's book, Danny. You know who started that pointing at your teammate on the assist? Dean Smith in the North Carolina Tar Heels started it. Hunter needs to read that book, get back to pointing to his teammates instead of pointing to the fans or these other the enemy, because it's not a good look. But you know, Diabate did some really good things. Like, I thought he was really good defensively on Jackson Davis in the first half, and then he did some things that got back to being a freshman again, getting the rebound, getting the ball, and rushing it. We had the turnover after the basket. He passed it to the Indiana kid, and then the turnover at the end. Those are freshman mistakes. He's got to get his composure and and be smarter, because he did so many good things. Even Brandon Johns did some good things. Drove to the lane, and but it's frustrating as heck, Denny. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We're all pissed off. Michigan people are upset. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it was a collapse. There were so many good things in the first half, and then in the first 7 minutes of the game. But the last 10 minutes and the last 13 minutes, it was a full and complete and a disastrous collapse. If you're somebody that watches these post games and you use the feedback, we like that. We're going to read some of the feedback here. I also want to tell people, if they want to get involved, go to my Twitter page at Dennis 50. You can see there. You can send me a direct message. We'll find a way to either to get you to call in, or we can link you up even in video wise, either with the audio or video in the future. I want to. This is the first time that I've made this announcement, but we see enough people that want to get in. If anybody ever wants to call in, anybody ever wants to link up video-wise on any of these post games or any of these afternoon shows, get at me on Twitter at Dennis Fithian, or you can send me an email, DennisSFithian@gmail.com. It's done just like that. All right, Scar, I'm going to give you the first crack at this feedback if you are ready.
Ready to roll.
Here we go. D's coming in saying, there you go. We couldn't overcome the away game atmosphere and the refs. Howard Camp seemed to harass the refs after what happened, but IU's coach did all game long. He should have been teed up. That said, you just can't blow a 17-point lead. If we still make the tournament, we better hope Devante Jones's ankle isn't too bad. He wasn't the same after hurting it. That's when IU went on this run. All they had to do was win one more game.
Yeah. I don't know how bad his ankle is. He's right. And, there's a fine line on how far to push the refs. And I thought there were a couple times that, I saw Brandon Johns again. They push him under the basket. He gets position. He allowed a guy to push him. There's a couple nickel dime stuff. These nuts is seeing it. And, but you have to know how far to push them. And maybe it did. I think he might be right. It didn't look like Jawan was as aggressive as he normally is with some of the calls. Maybe he thought it was okay, that it was fair. But I don't know what's going on with him in terms of being what he just went through. Is that going to soften him up on the sideline? But you got to balance it. You got to know the referees. You got to know how far you can push them, and is it worth it? So there's a skill to that. He's worked around a lot of people to know how far to push referees and when to do it. And I think he knows a heck of a lot more than me about how far to push referees.
Yeah, well, Woodson did get a T, and Howard was using his timeouts there with some of the pushes. They got it down to 10. He made one, and then they ran out of timeouts trying to, cut into that momentum that the Hoosiers were suddenly on fire there in that last 10 minutes. But I think it's going to be natural no matter who it is. Like, nobody's been in a situation where they've been suspended for 5 games in college and then asked to be over there on the sideline. It's just natural. You're not going to be over there showing your teeth or yelling the same way that you would. It's going to be an adjustment period. And after the first game, could that have been a factor? It could have been. But each one of those guys, like, we could just go down the roster. Nobody in the last 13 minutes of the game played well. Unforced turnovers, missed shots left and right. The Butterfinger all of a sudden can't defend, and it snowballed. And how do you do that? You go to your coaches and you go to your best players, and none of them were able to come up big.
Danny, what they did defensively was different than what they had done. And we should have had a game plan. I put this on our offensive coaches and our scheme a little bit because, they were not doing the same things. They were really aggressive, and they were forcing us to because they were doubling the ball, and we just should have had better answers. And I think we focused too much on trying to force it down to Hunter. They were doubling him, tripling him. They were doing everything to keep it away from him. But nice job, Michigan big league. Then can't make a shot. Give me a break. Okay, well, I don't know how to respond to that. It's tough.
Well, I hear it. You know, Jim, they couldn't make a shot. Indiana run, no excuses for Michigan, 0. They didn't even give Indiana a game in the second half. D's jumping back in. I don't want to hear any of these. These are freshman players that are going to leave. Our freshmen are so far from ready for the professional leagues. Oh, we'll be talking a lot about that when the season is over, D's, that's for sure. But I understand where you're coming from. Here's Andre. This is a microcosm of the season with their up and down play.
He's absolutely right. Yeah, and I hope Dees is right about those freshmen. Not going anywhere because they got a long way to go physically, mentally. I'd like to think we got them all back. Woodson arrest the refs all game long. He got the refs to allow a physical game, which possibly it was a physical game. There's no question it was physical, and you got to match it. You got to know how the refs are calling it. Are we better with Martelli? I don't know. I can't answer that. Are we playing Dayton now? Who knows? Let's see. That's the alternative W's.
That's the play. That's the play games. That's in Dayton. This is from people that are listening to the podcast.
Yeah, there's no gimmies on that play-in, but we got to keep our fingers crossed. We don't know what's going to happen, man. We're not. They had us as a 10. Before the game, I saw one DeCourcy. I don't know. Who knows?
It's so weird that this team has been alternating W's and L's, never 2 of them in a row, since February the 12th. Well, that's right. That has been the tail of the tape for them, and that's too bad. And I hate the play-ins. It's better than the alternative of not being able to play at all. So there was a point in the season I would have gladly taken the play-in, but hey, at this point, they'll be lucky to get it. I don't know if they'll be lucky to get a play-in. I hope they don't get a play-in, but, play-ins suck. But when you play like you did today, you might just be put in the corner and have to have a play-in.
Yeah, it's a huge test of your mental toughness, man. With the coaches and the players. Danny, you hit it though. When you're up 17. And then they start to make a little run. The crowd gets loud, and then you're right. You got the Iowa, the Purdue, everybody beating up on Michigan because maybe they don't like Juwan, maybe they don't like Hunter pointing at the crowd. And all those little things matter. But you got to be mentally tough. You got to find leaders that can push through that. You got to find coaches that can coach through that, and players and leaders that can get you through that tough crowd momentum swing. You got to stop it.
Yeah, Dees, you said that you thought they were harassing Hunter. What happened to Dickinson? He went soft when they needed him the most. Yeah, when they were scrambling around there, they were flying at Hunter. They were flying at everybody. Michigan just wasn't strong with the ball. What happens when teams are desperate and they start panicking? Yeah, they're going to play a lot more physical. They're going to scramble. They're going to be all over you. And the counter to that is being strong with the ball, being able to make assertive passes, and then just getting in there and making baskets. And, what are they going, a 12, 13-minute drought? Like, it was just 10 minutes, whatever. It was crazy.
Yeah,
it was so long that it just snowballed on them that way.
Yeah, but they were really when Hunter got the ball anywhere near the low block, and when they made their second half adjustment, they were doubling them. One time they triple teamed them, so they were not going to let Hunter Dickinson beat them. And they were a scrambling defense. I give Woodson credit, and we didn't capitalize. We didn't find the weakness in what they were doing. There's no way any of the freshmen leave and Hunter might stay. I hope you're right, Andre. I hope you're right. Because Caleb Houston's got to get in that weight room. He's got to get stronger. Diabate's got a long way to go. I saw they had him. I just looked the other day. I think they had Caleb Houston as like number 40 and Diabate number 50. I was on CBS, draft and projections. But
Yeah, well, that would be in the second round. If I was giving advice to either of those guys, and after today, it's not like you're going to sit out. You watch a Diabate go the distance, and he looked like, you called earlier in the year, sometimes looked like Chris Webber. He looked a lot like Chris Webber, driving the floor and coast to coast and dunking that one. But yeah, if we're sitting here today talking about these guys, there's no lock anywhere close to them being a lock that they're going to be one of the first 30 players, picked in this draft. That seems like a pipe dream, but it only takes one team and to get that advice to say, hey, you know what, we are going to take you. And then sometimes they jump, but I wouldn't think so. But, we've seen some guys just don't want to be in college after, 1 year, they're ready to go pro. But so, yeah, it'd be great to see everybody come back, but I doubt that that's going to happen.
What's interesting is Buffkin didn't play at all. That was interesting. I thought he's been playing pretty good. I don't know if he was hurt, but, Frankie Collins got in. He finishes. The kid, when he gets a 10-footer, and if he can be, like I talked about, if he can be a 30% three-point shooter, that kid is going to be something. So Williams played a little bit, lost his guy on defense. Jones was finishing at the rim. Just really strong. If he doesn't make the bucket, he gets the foul.
Which is Ron Howard. Let's see if he can pick this up.
For us, it didn't go in our favor. Unfortunately, we had just some defensive breakdowns, but those all are teaching moments that we will learn and grow. Do you have any questions?
This is Juwan, courtesy of the Big Ten Network. He was talking about the game there and making a statement there, learning. Well, you can say all of that. You got one more. And it's where you get to find, like, this will be forgotten. They go out and, win 2 games next week. First of all, they got to get in there. And maybe it'll be 3 because maybe they have to play in and get into a play-in game. But, anybody that had a lot of confidence that, there were a lot of things in their work going Michigan's way, and then watching Dickinson come back, and he's like, oh, he looks 100% now in the first half. And you're thinking, then Caleb Houston hits back-to-back threes, and it's like, wow, if Houston can get going, Diabate's going. Look at, the offense that Terrence Williams provided in the last 4 games. This team, you at least started thinking about it for a second into the second half that maybe everything was coming together for this team. Devante Jones clearly playing his best basketball, and now Michigan may be getting a bench, and here they are, ready to take on the number 1 seed Illinois tomorrow. Or did they have anything for the Illini? But now that's all put to the side here, and people were optimistic about this team for the reasons I've just pointed out, and now they're going to be pessimistic about this team being able to even win a game if they get in coming up next week. So
we're Michigan's capable of beating anybody. I mean, with the kind of shooting we've had, when it's good, we went on the road and beat that team by 20. So who knows what we're going to get. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that you will not see another Hunter Dickinson technical foul for pointing at an opponent or an opponent's bench again. I think he learned his lesson. He's going to point to his teammates. He's going to point to his bench. He's going to point to his crowd. And I think he's going to grow up, and that's not going to happen again. I just think he's too smart. He can't hurt. He found out that it hurt his team today. It's a shame. It's a shame, Denny, that didn't happen earlier in the year and not in a crucial game. He could have learned that lesson somewhere else, but referees didn't call it.
Well, he should have learned the lesson against Michigan State when he was over there screaming at Izzo.
But they didn't call a technical foul. So if you're not punished, they're going to allow you to do it.
No, they didn't. But Michigan State made a run. I mean, why do you have to have the officials did that? They did call a technical on him in the freshman year when he was at Maryland, hooping it up with the opponent's bench. He should have learned his lesson there. Some guys play better when they're on an edge and they're screaming and yelling, but you got to be able to harness it in. You can't be able to, go over the line. It's the bottom line. You know what? If Michigan wins and Dickinson makes about 3 or 4, maybe you only need to make 1 play in the last 10 minutes. He didn't make any, but if he makes 2 or 3 plays in the final 10 minutes, we're talking about him being over 20 points. And you know what? He's a guy that has to play with that kind of edge, and you roll with it. So I don't know. You got to figure out. You can't. You're asking for it. If you go to the official and you start going like that, like and one gesturing at him, they tee you up in the NBA. for doing that. So you're just asking for a technical foul. So go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully we're all done with that. But I'm just putting myself back in the huddle of a timeout of a team that's making a run against you, and as a coach, and I know that there's some players that get that stare in their eye, like they can't handle the moment, and other guys can handle the moment, and we just needed players and coaches to step up and stop the momentum. And what I was also wondering when they were scrambling that defense is how much did we work on that? How much have we worked on that type of a scrambling, trapping defense to really make it pay? Because it frustrated us. It stopped us. It got us out of sync. And everything, you got to work on all that stuff. And I was just wondering how much we worked on it.
Well, weren't you telling me it might have been the Ohio State game, it might have been the Michigan State game, how you thought Michigan did a good job when those teams came out and put some full court pressure or put some three-quarter court pressure? You thought Michigan did a good job. Usually, I can't remember a game. Usually the Wolverines handle pressure. This was different because it was in a half-court kind of scramble, and you get one, you're like, all right, you get it, you get two, but they never were able to cut that off. They've done pretty well, like the game against Purdue. They did go to Iowa, they did go to Indiana, and they played well there. It's a different story when you get on neutral court, and then it was working against them because the Hoosiers not only were home, but they were the underdog, and also you had the Juwan Howard factor in there that had everybody rooting. So this was a road game for Michigan, but this is what separates good teams from also ran. This separates teams that can make a run in a tournament or win consecutive games. It's guard play. It's being able to handle exactly what happened to them when teams try to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you, and you got to be able to execute. And they couldn't execute anything. This would be like in a football game with a big lead. They were fumbling. They were throwing interceptions, missing blocks. They were doing all of that. And it wasn't just one thing. It was the guys that you would want to have the ball in their hands. Devante Jones just coming across the screen, drops the ball out of bounds. They come out of a timeout. Let's get the ball down to Hunter Dickinson. Don't really have the angle. Eli Brooks airmails it. Like, those are the things where you say this team's just not good enough to make any kind of run. Win consecutive games, win on the road, win in a tournament-type atmosphere. And, they deserve the skepticism now based on how they went out there and performed.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I was mainly referring to our ability to break a full court press, Denny, when I was talking about Ohio State. I think we are a really good full court press break team. I think Devante Jones, and I think in general, we do a pretty good job of breaking it. We just had trouble with their scrambling pressure half-court defense that was just totally shut our offense down and made us look like we hadn't seen that. And I just wonder, how much do you work at? Because everything that happens in a game, you got to have your team prepared for. You can't prepare for it when it's happening. You got to have worked on it in practice. Everything. You guys are the great coaches work on everything. You're prepared for everything. So that's all I was seeing was how much had we worked on that prior to that.
Well, if I'm an Indiana fan, I want the Hoosiers to play like that all the time. Go with the scramble right from the outset. And there was a graph that they threw up there in the second half. I don't remember all the numbers, but number one in the Big Ten in field goal percentage, number one in three-point field goal percentage, number one in steals, up there in blocks. I mean, number one or two in all of those, like 4 or 5 categories that they threw up there. And what that tells you, sometimes you look, you say, well, are they a real deliberate offensive team, that takes away possessions? No, they're so what that does tell you is they have some, sneaky good athletes or some good athletes there to be able to play that kind of defense, throughout the season to be number one in the Big Ten. So you saw that. You didn't see it for the first. You didn't see it in the first half. You didn't see it for the first 7 minutes. So I didn't see it for the first 27, but we saw it for the last 13.
Yeah, Danny, this is we just got to deal with it, and hopefully their minds are tough. we get some good news Sunday night, and I think these kids gotta. Obviously, they're hurting. Michigan's hurting. We're all hurting. You can't throw the towel in. Can't point fingers. You know, that's what the great coaches do. The great programs do. You look in the mirror. Every player on that team is going to look in the mirror because none of them were good enough to win. No coach was good enough to win. None of them. So they look in the mirror. They deal with it. They don't point no fingers. Let's hope for some good news Sunday night, and let's move on.
Well, I think it's a great point. And the one thing in college basketball that we always know, you get to this point, and if you're able to get in, all of these other things were little tests and little quizzes and everything else. The final exam means everything, and that is the NCAA tournament. So if they go out there and if they're able to win one game, you know, this one is quickly forgotten. But it's just the skepticism. First, the worry that you talked about leading up to Sunday. But if they are able to get in, there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to have their pen in their hand, even Michigan fans, that'll be like, oh, yeah, Michigan, let's just have them advancing. Yeah, I think even if you pick them, even if you're a Michigan fan, you might just pick them because you just always pick Michigan, whoever they play. I'm picking Michigan to win that first one. But you know that if you're writing Michigan in there, whoever they play, if we're sitting there, if they're able to get in, that it's likely going to be a coin toss. And if you're advancing Michigan after one game, and then, you know, it's not that you're a homer or you just love Michigan, but you can't, there's nothing that you have seen in this team that if they get into the tournament that you're going to start advancing them more than one game. It's just like, it's okay that if you love Michigan and that you always pick them just because you always ride with the maize and blue, you're a ride and die. That's the way you go. But we can just say it right now. You're a homer if you pick Michigan to win any more than one game if they get into the tournament. But
you know, Danny, I'll tell you though, Michigan might, so much of it though is matchups in terms of who you get, who you draw. We might have, we might get a low seed and we might get, have to play a 4 or 3 or who knows, somebody really, really good, but it might be a great matchup for us. So we don't really know. You know, they might be a team that has a problem with Hunter Dickinson, with that type of a player. So let's just hope we get a good draw. What do we got here? Michigan needs the Beeline type. The 5 stars are a joke. We get better play from the bench players, sloppy and most undisciplined team. Listen, I don't know. I don't know what you get into that. Let's just hope our young guys stay and are developed, because that's what John Beeline was able to do. We didn't lose too many guys. I don't think he had a one and done. I think everybody stayed at least 2 years under Beeline. So let's just hope these guys stay and are developed. And then 2-3 years from now, or maybe even next year, if Caleb Houston really develops and Frankie Collins really develops and Diabate's back and Hunter's back and all these guys are back, then we'll have belief in the Juwan Howard system. So let's keep the faith. I hope I understand that comment. I hope it's wrong though. Just like I'm sure deep down he believes, he hopes that it's wrong and that Juwan can get this thing going.
All right, Scar. You've made a couple final points, and then I've jumped in there. You got a final point?
Hey, man, look in the mirror. Let's hope for good news Sunday and go blue.
There you go. I always enjoy talking with you. Nice passion, and hopefully we are talking about this team in the NCAA tournament. Thanks, Scar. That'll do it. Michigan out of the Big Ten tournament. Their hands are in the selection committee. We'll see what happens. Take care. Bye.